Hauntdermotts here. I'm coming to you with our latest haunted happening. Our haunted happening this week is actually from a fellow Jersey girl, and it's a testimonial from a seance that she was involved in. And this haunted happening reminds us that not all encounters with the other side have to be scary. Even though they might be scary accurate, that doesn't mean that they have to be frightening. Sometimes we experience them because those that live beyond the veil want us to come in contact with them and want to give us affirmations. So I hope you enjoy this. I know that we did.
Hey everyone, my name is Sylena, and I would like to tell you guys a story about a paranormal experience that I had recently. A little backstory about me is that I never really accepted most of my life my connection to spirit. My grandfather was a sort of medium, and when people would pass away, he would write letters to me from them, and he would know things that only the two of us knew. And it was always very comforting for me. And he always told me that I had that same spiritual connection inside of me, and I always took it with a grain of salt. And I would have these dreams about my mother's life as a child, and things that I couldn't have known about her, things she never told me about herself. And I would wake up and I would tell her about them and call her names that family members called her that I couldn't have known otherwise because they're no longer with us. And it would freak her out a little bit, and me too. But again, I never really accepted that side of myself. And growing up, every time I went to Teresa Caputo's show or any kind of, experience like that, it was a surefire bet that that person would read either myself or someone in my group. And still, I never accepted my connection to spirit, but I think I'm pretty convinced now, after what happened in October. I decided to take one of my good friends, Heather, to a seance for her birthday down in Sykesville, Maryland. And my stepson, Peyton, also wanted to come with us. And at the time, my fiance and I were not that we weren't on good terms, but, COVID's done a lot to people, and it made me question things, whether or not I was in the right place, doing the right thing. And so when we got to the seance, Dan, the leader, asked us to write down a question for spirit. And each of us did that. And my question was, am I with who I'm supposed to be with? I didn't put any names, I didn't put any information, just that. Heather's question was, is he ever coming home? And that was because at the time, she and her husband were not on the best of terms. They were on a trial separation, and she wanted to know if he was going to come back to her. And as for my son, he tragically lost his best friend to suicide when they were 12 years old. And my son has not had any kind of peace since then. And so his question was that he wanted to make sure his friend was at peace, and, just wanted to connect with her in some way, to know that her soul was at rest, even though she died in a very tragic way. And so those were our questions, and everyone else asked their questions, and we folded them up and put them in this velvet bag that Dan asked me to hold for the entire evening. And so we go upstairs in the Patapsco Distillery, and the first part of the seance was pendulum. And we had a string with a key tied to the end of it. I had never done a pendulum session before, and Dan asked us to hold them out in front of us, and he asked spirit to present themselves, and my key was going absolute bananas. I was not moving my hand in any way. I was just sitting there in awe as it danced around, and he asked it to go back and forth, and he asked it to go forward and back, and he asked it to go in a circle, and everything he asked, it did insanely fast. And honestly, in that moment, it was the first time I felt my grandfather's presence since he passed. It was almost as if he was trying to shake me and say, "Now do you see?" And I've always loved keys, antique keys. They're pretty much all over my house as decoration. I love them. And he believed that my reason for that was because I still had so many doors to open. And if I was going to even attempt to do that, I needed a key. And I think he might have been right about that. And I just started sobbing to myself as I sat there in my chair, because I just felt so at peace and so connected to this person that I have been needing in my life for a long time since he left us. And it was wonderful, but also painful. And Dan could see that, and he wanted to go into the next portion talking about trance, and he asked if I would volunteer to be put into one. And I've never done anything like that before, and I said sure. And I remember everything that he said. He wrapped a piece of string around an antique key, and he said that that was to make you still stay connected, to the physical world while you were traveling. And his voice was very soothing, and he just asked a bunch of questions. He wanted me to imagine a calendar flipping on a wall, and what era did I choose, what date did it fall on, and asked me to imagine myself floating from the second floor where we were down to the street. What did everything look like? And I remember the temperature feeling cold. I remember cobblestone streets. And he asked me to go to a door, and he asked me to use the key that I had to open the door. And when I got there, I was able to unlock it and open it, but I couldn't see past. And I remember physically feeling like I was asleep. I still felt myself in the room with everyone, but there was a disconnection. There was where they were there looking at me, and I knew that, but I was outside of myself. And I saw myself drift into sleep, into a trance. And when he told me to come out of it, I did, and I remembered everything. But I also felt probably the most at peace that I've ever felt in my life. And he was teaching us about trance because his wife does something called trance writing or psychography. And I'd never heard of that before, and it's basically where he puts her into such a deep trance, and she's able to go through doors like that and see to the other side, and she is able to reach spirit and bring back messages for people. And so that was the next thing that he did for us. And she just sat there and she was listening to him, and she was drawing and writing on this piece of cardboard. And then Dan passed the cardboard around after Kat finished writing on it. And there were 2 wedding rings overlapping each other, which, of course, as soon as Heather saw that, it just lifted her spirits because it gave her some hope. And right in the middle of the page, it said, "Brianna, hello." And my son started sobbing because Brianna was his best friend who he lost tragically all those years ago, and all he wanted was for her to reach out to him, and she did. And Dan actually was kind enough to give us that piece of cardboard at the end of the seance. I asked him if we could keep it. I knew it would mean a lot to Peyton if he had it, and he now keeps it in his room, and it's one of his most treasured items. And I'm so grateful to them for that moment, because it's exactly what my child needed to start mending himself from this pain. And then Dan asked for the bag of our questions that I'd been holding the whole time, that there was no way that he could have looked at it. There was no way that Kat could have looked at it. And he took out one of them and he lit it on fire and put it into a lantern. So again, no one looked at it, no one read it. And then while Kat was still in her trance, he asked her to start reaching out to Spirit to answer the questions that we had all asked. And he went, she went table to table saying everyone's names and answering exactly, what they asked. And it got to our table, and she said to Heather that, she was suffering because her partner had left, and she wanted to know whether he was going to come home. And she said that there was a lot of back and forth and confusion going on in her heart, and that is because her husband actually kept coming back to get things and go back to where he was staying, and it was just very confusing for her because she just kept hoping when he came home that he would just stay home. And Kat told her that that was going to happen. And sure enough, a few days later, he did come home, and they are back together and, working on their relationship. So that was a really wonderful experience for Heather. And then it got to Peyton, and she said that Brianna was more at peace now than she's ever been when she was on this earth, and that she loves Peyton so much and loves that he cares for her so much, but not to worry about her because she is okay, and she wants him to know that she loves him too. And I don't think I've ever seen my child more at peace than that moment. It was the greatest gift anyone could ever have given him, and I'll always be grateful to them for that. And then Kat got to my question, and Heather and Peyton had no idea what I had asked. And she started talking about the fact that I was confused about where I was in my life. I didn't know if the person I was with was the person I was supposed to be with and what I was supposed to do, and that there was other people talking to me and wanting my attention, and I felt pulled in a bunch of directions. And that was very true for me. A lot of people from my past at the time had reached out, with words of comfort and talking about the past, and it made me consider going back home to New Jersey, whether or not my place in Maryland was really where I was supposed to be. And then she said that she was getting a name that began with a B, and I was like, what? And then she said Brent. She actually said my fiance's name. And she said that, yes, I was with the person that I'm supposed to be with, and that I could, rest my heart and bet on that, and that things were going to be tough for a little while, but I needed to hold on and I needed to try. But that he was the person I was meant to be with. And sure enough, after that, I started to, open myself up more to understanding the situation that we were going through, and knowing that we were just in, a rough patch and going through a tough time. But we both just put our heads together and tried really hard, and we came out the other side of it. And we actually... we couldn't have, a real wedding or a real ceremony or anything just yet, and we will do that in the future. But on February 21st, we had our marriage certificate signed by our good friend Bill, who is an ordained minister in York, Pennsylvania. We got married. So I am married to the man that Kat told me I was meant to be with. And I really appreciate her guidance with that, because I was in a bad place, and I don't know if I might have made a mistake had I not gone to the seance that night. So Spirit was definitely with our group more so than anyone that night, and we just had a wonderful experience with it. And I hope that other people can have that same experience, or even better. And I hope that you're willing to talk about it, because it's wonderful to share these things with people. And I'm really glad that I got to share my story with you today. So have a good night, everyone. Bye.
guys, I hope that you enjoyed that. It definitely gave me the warm fuzzies, and again reminds us that not all haunted happenings are scary. You know, sometimes they're meant to just let us know that there is a world beyond ours. If you're interested in the mediums that gave Sylena her reading, they are the Eckerts, the.Eckerts on Instagram, and we will post that information in the comments. So see you on the next video, and subscribe to our channel. Happy haunts, guys!